Very good, very good. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Let's get it. Checking news, checking news. Good morning, good morning. All right. So, yesterday, what I normally do is look at the rest of the week on Tuesdays sometimes, but I didn't this week. So, here I am getting surprised by a rate statement for Canada. So, interest rate decision for Canada. Not that I'd trade the CAD, maybe like never. Um, but if you do like the Canadian dollar, um, I would I would leave it alone after the rate statement because it's going to be very volatile, very crazy. Right? This is in a while, but this is the focus today, news wise. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in exactly 7 hours, the CAD's going to go nuts. So, and leading up to it, it's all about what's coming later. So I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't look at it. And once the everything dies down, becomes normal, once it comes out and everything's high volume simmers down, there may be an opportunity after that, or ideally tomorrow. But that's the focus of news today. There's not much else. Late U.S. FOMC minutes, FOMC speech, and as far as what's coming up, we have in an hour Euro unemployment, Italian unemployment rate. It's all light impact stuff. Hour after that, okay, I still hear like people coming in, so I'm just kind of taking my time. I think we're good. Everybody, just make sure your mic is muted in the webinar. Somehow, some reason, people get unmuted. Okay, so in an hour, and then in an hour later than that, we have two pieces of light impact news for the euro. Um, I'm still holding some of that euro long entry from yesterday. I took partial profit. Hopefully, you guys saw it. We will get to that. Okay. Give me 1 second here. We'll get to the charts. Okay. How about that euro dollar? Yes. Thanks, euro dollar. Too kind. Hey, look, it's my favorite thing in the whole universe. A fake breakout. I think somebody had pointed out, just to go back to our analysis, nothing was changed here. This was our. Somebody had pointed out, what fib? That one. Okay. So I may or may not have ended up drawing that on, but not that it's wrong. But and that's a 618 overshoot. So either way, but it's also a fake breakout of support. Double nice. But yeah, that's my favoriteest pattern. The 5 minute setup. If anybody has any questions on the setup, there was some weakness that came in just recently where I took partial profit, and we'll see what happens from there with no risk on the trade at this point. Um, I probably said it 5 times yesterday that I really wanted this to happen and that there was going to be very likely buying if we get lower. And if you remember when we saw this low together, I said, well, I really wanted to do this, right? The fake breakout. So there it is. And of course, that with some extremely high volume, right? Textbook, 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 textbook. If there's any questions about what went on here, we can actually talk about that entry in detail. It's a good example of being patient, getting the confirmation. But there was my entry here. Sorry, right there, which I can explain once we go through it in the analysis. Um, and then the way this guy just popped up, this was just not 30 minutes ago, the way it popped up there, and once it gave a bearish reaction, I figured if it goes below the low of this candle, I want to take some partial profit. So that's done. But stop is at break even, and we'll see if it wants to continue or hit my break even. So obviously right now I'm not looking to get in. If you're not in a trade, too bad for you. No. If you're not in a trade, I don't know. Wait for a down move. It's yesterday all over again, and this time it might not happen. The 5 minute was just, again, as I said, we're not the only ones that were saying yesterday. We just wanted to go down so we could buy. We just wanted to go down so we could buy, and at least to this spot, right? And look at that volume on there. We read it like a book. Um, it was all about that and buying off that level. You see what happened after that. Nice waves up. We could talk about entry. Then it got quiet for the day, and then Asia opened. Bam, we keep going, right? So any particular signs of weakness or trouble? Okay, this guy, I didn't want to have this come back and, talking about quickly about managing a trade. I didn't want to have this. It's not the worst thing in the world. We're having sort of spiky volume here, but again, it's the no regrets approach, right? And to see something like this and get nothing on the trade and have it come all the way back to entry, which is like around here, that would suck. So I want to, put some of the bank, get rid of risk, and whatever happens, happens. Now, I'm in a trade with no risk that goes with the background. Now, if we look at that volume of that weakness that came in, right, just to put it in perspective, it's nothing. It's still a very bullish environment. It just looks like high volume stuff because of the very low volume before it, and there's some spikes in there, but overall the activity is very low here. This is not some profit taking. So I would still want to be in this. And again, likely the next move, which is really the main area. Actually, we got very close there to really see what's going to happen next, if there's weakness there or not, as far as managing the trade. If it's moving up through there and there's not weakness or nothing too crazy, or there's a bit of weakness and it continues as a result, right? We can look at it if it does that. Then at that point, I let it break out and I can trail it. I could move my stop up to make it a fake breakout failure to get me out of the trade. So it would have to actually do a fake breakout bearish pattern. Anyway, we could talk about that. But it's very bullish still at the moment. Nothing about these charts says that we're moving down anytime soon. But again, if we can get up here, we can get some information about that. But at the moment, no. If we look at the daily chart, it's a big sloppy mess, and it's suggesting we're going to keep going. I'm just going with what the chart says. If it moves up here in this very high volume weakness, I'll be a little bit surprised because it looks like everybody's on the same page here. But it could happen, and we'll find out when it gets there, and hopefully I'll still be in the trade. If you're not in the trade, again, it's very similar to yesterday, but the good opportunity was there, so I'm not really expecting that level to come in again. Let's just mark it. Let's start over here. I'm not assuming that everybody is in the trade. It looks like almost everybody's here today. Okay, good. But I'm not going to assume everybody's in this trade still or even took the trade. So, marking up like if I was looking to get in with a fresh position, what would I do? Obviously not buying into the top up here. So price has to come down just like yesterday, right? Patience pays. It did it. because again, this is where sellers may be lurking, and we're very, very close to it. It's a horrible place to get in. Um, so we have a fib area. This I doubt is going to happen, but if it does, likely, very, very likely, this is where they loaded up on longs yesterday, just like I wanted to. It's like I wanted to do what they wanted to do. And if we end up back at that level, they'll very, very likely do that again and even create another fake breakout, possibly too. I don't see enough selling for it to get there, but it could. It wouldn't be crazy. Um, Sitting in a reaccumulation for a little while. If there's a bit of, you know, supply coming in, it might come all the way down there. Who knows? And then you have here the fib zone down to the 618 overshoot. So these are areas, if you're not still in the trade, to look for that entry. Ideally would be here. And then, of course, we could draw bigger fibs, but I just don't expect it to go lower. Yeah, if it breaks out here, then you can worry about it. But whatever's back there, simple stuff. Okay. I think we're only missing one person, so, and I know who it is. John, I think. So remembering yesterday was all about looking for, and that's the only thing I took, looking for the down moves, unless, of course, it moved up and showed high volume weakness or something else happened. But it was looking for down moves, just like the euro dollar, and strength and the reaccumulation and the entry off of that. And just to skip through who did it, who didn't. This guy barely, well, let's zoom in, didn't offer much. Here we are into new high ground. We'll go through one by one analysis. I just want to see where everybody is right now. This is into new high ground, right? It's that weak yen, right? We were saying the weakest, the most obvious and extreme thing is the weak yen. Dollar, U.S. dollar weak too, but when the yen is even more weak, very weak. That's pretty extreme. This guy just floating up against it. This guy floating up. We'll get into the analysis of it here. We're just messing around with new high ground, nice and early. This gave a fake breakout actually. This might have been tradable. Well, the euro dollar was, so this might have mirrored it. I don't know. This is what we drew yesterday. So we have a fake breakout and a touch of fib and 50 EMA, right? All that business here. Look familiar? Oh, okay. Yeah, it kind of mirrored it, right? So there, yeah, there's a valid entry right there. I didn't take it, but that's completely valid. Somebody here took that. Come on now. Who took it? Was it a little late in the day? Yeah. No. Um, Not horribly late. That's fine. But yeah, I think that's around the same time I took the euro. So um, this is a valid entry here off strength. Again, we could talk about entries after I go through the analysis just to show them because we don't, of course, get to see them in real time all the time. I'm just seeing how much buying and selling happened after that. So nothing's changed. I mean, to keep it simple, right? It's an uptrend, and all we're seeing is demand coming in. No high volume weakness coming in. Now that this is kind of erratic, this volume. I'm just noticing that this stuff is unusually high. What the heck went on these last days of December? I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't even looking at charts. Weird. Like after Christmas, we had all that activity. I guess. Jeez, take a break. Um, So again, everybody should understand nothing's changed. We are still bullish. The EJ and the EU gave the cleanest, properest, most proper, nice A plus setups. Fake breaks, fib touches, 50 EMA, 5 minute clear volume, high volume demand, quick fake breakouts that come back above. Everything was nice about that. So hopefully you're able to take advantage. So today is the same. And again, there's a lot of money long. And if they're going to get out and if anything's going to change, because if anybody's wondering, or especially the newer people, what about shorts? Is it possible? Not at all. So lower prices coming in means we'd be looking to buy. And it would take a lot of volume, very high volume weakness. There's a lot of long positions. A lot of money is long. If they're going to get out and change, it's going to be some very high volume weakness, which is most likely really comes in one of two ways. Of course, new high ground, climactic volume weakness, or some more sloppy stuff that has a result of lower prices that still has very high volume. More typically, we get that higher up weakness and then we turn. But sometimes you can get choppiness, craziness, and that very high activity leading to that result of lower prices. Those are basically the two things, right? Maybe the third would be if we kept banging against these higher levels for days, and every time we do it, we get some volume standing out on the 1 hour. It's not climactic, but it does start to say distribution over time, right? All right, so there's three ways. But that's it. The point is they can't hide when they get out. The price is not going to really turn down until there's some high volume saying so. Just not. Any sort of down move, again, is smart buyers just letting it come down, letting the sellers get trapped and waiting for a good price, which is what we did yesterday. Remember the stop losses were there? Ding, 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 ding. Sorry. Definitely. Dirty business. All right, so we'll get a little more detailed on the levels that we're going to be looking for if price moves down to buy. Give me 1 second. One second, just have to do something. Okay. So we have some new people in here. Reggie, you made it. Good. And Dennis, right? I'm not sure who's new. But anyway, you can type directly to me in the webinar, privately or to the group if you have any questions. Welcome, welcome. Dennis, there you are. See, yesterday. There's somebody with a name with a D, and the first I was calling them Dennis. It was hilarious. You should have been there. The real Dennis is here now. Okay, good. Um, Everybody here, if there's anybody who didn't get the initial email with the MyFX source logo on top. If you got an email that was from my Yahoo address only and not the first email, then let me know. That means you still didn't get it. Okay. Past that, getting on schedule. Yep. That's the life. What time zone are you in? I'm in the worst possible in the entire globe. East Coast. So 3 a.m. is, I don't know if I'm staying up late or getting up early. Colorado. Okay. Still kind of bad, yeah. Worst part of the world to trade in is right. Us. East Coast, in a few months. Oh, so you'll be joining the 3 a.m. club. All right. Okay. Reggie, you don't think that you got the first email, the one that didn't come from my Yahoo address? Okay. Really weird. Never had this issue. I've been using this service for like a year or two. And yeah, that's really weird. I don't know if it's in your spam folder or some sort of different folder. And you have to mark. Isn't there a way to take contact at myfxsource.com, that email address, and make it a make it a legit, like a setting that I might have to tell people to do? I don't know. I just want to email people. Don't block me, bro. Okay. Well, we're here today. So, again, because the US dollar weakness and the yen weakness, which is even weaker, that's the driving force. So everything is bullish as far as these first six, at least, right? And that would make UJ bullish too, but not a great pick. Um, the analysis is going to be pretty much the same. So this is as correlated as it gets, right? And I always like these. Oh, okay. You can reply to it. That should make it safe. Okay. So yeah, if anybody's got to go into the spam folder or something like that, if you reply to the email, it goes into your contacts, or basically, right? Or you add it to your contacts, maybe. All right, cool. Well, for the time being, once the session starts, I have to check my email in case everybody and anyone's saying, "Oh, I didn't get in." Anyway, okay. There's no rush here, right? We need price set to go down. If things want to go up, I have some running on the euro dollar. If things want to go down, we could have some buy opportunities. Um, but again, it's similar to yesterday. U.S. dollar and yen weakness driving the up moves. Very correlated. I like when things are like this. You typically get the cleanest market when that's the case. There's not some different story going on with the pound or the euro that's the focus of the market. Um, and again, it's the same where we want the down moves, we want the strength to get in. If we don't go down and we just start moving up, there are places, things we could look for, the no supply stuff, right? So again, it's just like yesterday, doing it all over again, which is fine with me. I'll do that every day. Um, but of course, like I said, I'd rather get the down moves. Even here, we happen to be looking at this. We're on the GU. Okay, we're going in order. Um, if this breaks through here off no supply, it's likely going to the top. It still has to get through a fib area. But again, the lower prices is always where I'm trying to get into these things. And buying into a fib is not really a hobby of mine. But if there's very low volume in here, it's likely going to the high. But anyway, that's not the first option. Again, it's that lower prices to buy is the first option. But this is new high ground for the session, and we'll get some information off of that, and we'll look at that. But just to mark up the really simple, obvious stuff. Of course, we love the fake breaks, so if that happens, see, this may show some weakness at fib, for example. I'll leave that in there just to show. So if you want to buy low on this, the hope would be that in this area, we know that that may attract sellers. This new high ground, so you could do a fake break, and it's fib, right? So it's not tradable because the background is bullish, or at least I wouldn't. But if enough selling shows up here, right, that tells the buyers what they're likely getting this price. We talked a lot about this yesterday. So if there's enough selling here, it tells the buyers this is likely. Wait for it. And you'll have sort of a lower volume move down, and then bam, just like yesterday, euro dollar, EJ, clearest examples. Now, again, on the other hand, if it moves up through this and we're not seeing weakness, it's a very late, too high, too late entry. Smart money is considering taking profit into these areas. It's a possibility. So that is not the time to enter. But again, traditionally, it's the down moves, the fibs, whatever you like. Because, like I say, I don't like to pick random places throughout the trend. I like to do the previous swing or the whole thing. This guy is pretty obvious, and I'd call that the previous swing. Well, there you go. All right, that explains that. We already had a line there. So that makes this trade even better. Okay. Just like EJ yesterday, right? I think that one hit 50 fib on a fake break. So that would be there. It's not that hard, is it? Some of you have been with me for a while. It's not that hard, is it? That's about it. And of course, there's the fake break all the way down to the 618 overshoot. So we're talking about in this area to see strength coming in. But as soon as it makes new low ground, it's going to give you information about how excited those buyers are. And it could set up right off of there or as low as that. If it gets through this area without strength and it really breaks, I'd be surprised. But then you have some larger fib stuff. Unless there's some very high volume weakness of some kind, it's still bullish, and he wants to do some ABC retracement. I don't know. I doubt it's going to get this low. It's practically impossible. 98% chance it's not going there. It's going here. So that's really it on this one. Traditional trade here would be looking to buy in here. And this is just too high and too late up this point. So hopefully some sellers could bring it down for an entry there. Reginald, oh no, well, it's the other one. The Yahoo address, it's just a regular old email of mine. It's the one that's from contact@myfxsource.com. That's the one that sends out the webinar ID. And it's through an emailing service and it's off a website address. So, spammy. No, I thought there was an opt-in, and I thought you guys were opting into the list, and it would all be fine. And I never had this problem before. I don't know. Anyway, okay. I'll just make sure everybody's getting here until it's all sorted. I don't know. So, okay, that's easy. Now, again, something to point out here is we wouldn't be going long if we saw high volume weakness up here, and we don't. Go over to AU, and we see new high ground. What's going on here? And this is very early in the day for this much activity. It's extremely high for the time of day. So let's see what that is all about. Is it profit taking? Some. Which is a good sign because you don't want to be buying up here So it could either start to confirm that it's going to turn, which I would want to see the US dollar really turning into strength across the board if I'm going to be selling here, but because that's what's driving the moves, right? Or it could come down and see reaccumulation. But if we go up and revisit this area and these sellers aren't here, then it's a bit of initial selling up there, but it's not distribution. It's not building up of short positions over time. If we end up getting through that without high volume the second try, right? It would just be temporary. But just to show the 5-minute why I say it's weakness, obviously that we all know that one. And if you notice the 14 EMA, which tells you about buyers, right after that, it's got a lot of volume too. Maybe it's just not their preferred pair. They want to get out of some AU and buy some GU on a dip or something. But that does suggest that the lower prices could come in here. Do I believe that it's a actual reversal? Because we do have high volume, but the thing is, it's here. It's not a traditional looking thing. Well, the 5-minute does say it's off the high price. That's what matters the most to me. So yeah, a 5-minute spike isn't going to convince me, but that volume is quite high, really high. Trying to get perspective on that. It's really high. Let's get back even more. Okay. That's a 5-minute chart. New high ground on a trend. What does that tell you? I'm not buying this one, right? How about if this happens today and we get the evidence that it's actually distribution and there's weakness again, then I'd be shorting. So says the chart. Again, ideally, if any of this stuff turns short, if the US dollar is driving the move, then it should become more bearish, at least to some extent, all around, unless we have weak dollar and even weaker Australian dollar. You know what I'm saying? But strictly reading the chart, there was so much selling here instantaneously as we hit those prices, which was on the 5-minute, that one more of those is going to tell me that this trend is really going to reverse. As far as the buyers and testing for buyers, right? They were active to some extent. 14 EMA, fake break pattern, and if we move down, we'll find out about them. If we move up, we'll find out about sellers. Okay. Well, that's a plot twist. Unusually high volume for that time of day. Huge 5-minute spike. Huge. New high ground on a trend. So they just banked a good amount of those long positions. And we'll see if this thing's really turning. Okay. So if that's an Australian dollar thing, we should see it here. Maybe not as much because the yen is weaker, but there it is. Looks the same. So in this case, it's more likely to turn down with all that weakness. I wouldn't want to buy up here anyway, but even more so. And if it moves down and there's no opportunity, I can let it come down. But if it starts to convince me of a short situation here, then so be it. Whatever the chart says. Steve. Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying, first of all, I'd want another uh, um, sign of weakness on an up move. So I'm not completely convinced. But it's just the simple fact that the 5-minute even though it's just the 5 minute, it was really ridiculously high, particularly this one. So you got to just consider, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Just facts. Yeah, it's ridiculously high. So there was a consensus. And for this time of day, so there was a consensus, right? Wasn't one dude to get out of these long positions. So it's starting to suggest, yeah. That's why I said I'm not totally convinced. Um, the 1 hour is very high also. It's not a perfect sign of weakness, but it just show all that high activity up here. Are we calling this automatic support? Yeah, sort of, whatever. It's a support. But I want to get convinced, yeah. But they showed their hand, right? In a 5 minute candle with ridiculously high volume, new high ground on a trend. This says a lot, yeah. But let's get convinced. Yeah. Really see that. Ideally, it's seeing weakness again, fake break. As far as a perfect situation here would be a fake break. Weakness again, something that stands out on the 1 hour is very high. 5 minute agreeing, fake break, and then of course seeing no demand. Not coming down and seeing that demand coming in the way it did here. It's got to really get right. Reversals are, yeah, more patient too, right? But again here, new high ground on a trend, 5 minute spike, unusually high volume all up in here without any sort of up move. So that involves lots of selling as well. This is actually the highest price here, unusually high for this time of day, very rare. Fake break pattern. We see what they're up to. They're not so confident they're taking profit. So we have this, some buy activity, then new high ground, very important. There it is. Fake break, high volume. 14 EMA, again, buyers, right? Facts. What's going on there? So there are those that are still bullish and buying, but there are those that are also taking profit and don't expect this to continue. And of those two groups, they're both very influential. So let them figure it out. But typically, you get this high in a trend, and you start seeing this stuff, right? Its days are numbered. Typically, the sellers win in the end in this case. But it could be an unusually strong trend, right? The yen could just be so weak still that it continues up. Who knows, right? So let's get convinced. So just to kind of, it's really a wait and see, but just to mark up something. The short here to consider. And if it just moves down, where would I buy? The thing is, the amount of supply weakness that's coming in is directly correlated to how much of a down move you would expect. So since there's so much selling, I wouldn't draw a fib in here, for example. Even though I'm not convinced to go short yet, would we still want to buy here, right? We'd be buying right into that very high volume selling. So nope. Here, yes. Who knows, right? You get into a range. But this is a nice distance away where if there's a proper long setup here, this is if there's no short setup and we just come down. Where would I consider doing anything? Would be buying away from this weakness off of good, high volume, clean stuff here. Ideally, you guessed it, fake breakout. This area, though, where that fib was, that this general middle area, that's weeds right now. We got sellers here, we got buyers here. We're in an uptrend. This is in the weeds. This is going to attract some demand. This is going to attract some supply. We'll see how it all works out. Okay. Remember price areas, right? Price areas. There's a bit of weeds here. Mr. EJ. EJ had that nice fake break yesterday. Where have we seen that before? Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe once or twice. So again, new high ground on a trend, on an uptrend, is some of the best information you can get about the health of the trend. It's like going to the doctor. So here's new high ground. Oh, okay. Initially, yes, lots of activity, but we did pop up, and we don't see much profit taking here. We don't see much activity, and it almost made it, as opposed to this kind of reaction, right? Like the Australian dollar stuff. So it didn't actually move down off of that weakness. It sort of died out quickly. I think there was just a bit of profit taking, and that's it. Maybe some more here. But again, this is the setup. This is a target area, and now it's a wait and see. Particularly now, if we saw some weakness coming in, is it going to reverse? Is it going to break out? Let it, and then look for trades after that. So it's a wait and see situation. This really was the spot, and we knew it. Talked about it yesterday. If you notice the difference, this also had very high volume uh, for the time of day, pretty high. This early, and it's higher than anything the last 2 days. And this early could have some moves today, right? What does that mean? But it's if you look at the difference, we held higher prices as a result. So yes, supply came in, but it's even less convincing than the Australian dollar pairs, where we had this downward reaction stuff, and a little more clarity on the weakness. Right? Let me see that weakness again. Earlier on, yeah, not so much. So this is more bullish. Looks like the euro is pretty happy and bullish. The Australian dollar is kind of sagging. Maybe. It could be that the US dollar and the yen are so weak, none of this matters, and it's just going to go up. But got to buy at the right spot. So again, here it's a wait and see. Um, this is a little more reasonable on this pair. Like I said, with the AU, AJ, this is not what I'd want to do on that, with that clear weakness. This is not so straightforward with the weakness. This really high volume didn't, again, like I explained. Um, but what would make it really nice here is if we would have to redraw the fib. If we can see a little more of this high ground stuff and not continuous weakness coming in, right? Saying that the health of the trend is good. So let's say it kind of did that. Then coming to a fib off of that, nothing wrong with that, right? So high prices, not much weakness. The lower the better. And then the reaccumulation stuff here or here. But in this case, I would actually, if this showed, right, which is kind of like this going into yesterday, where the higher prices showed very little activity, and then we were just looking to buy, looking to buy. So again, if we do that sort of thing, then I'm good with this. It's higher prices on a trend showing lack of weakness and a good old reaccumulation stuff. For now, that's the fib. And again, this area, similar. If these trends want to pull back a little further, nothing wrong with that. If it doesn't give a short setup and it's not really convincing, then it's just a matter of waiting. So again, here or here is good too. Textbook stuff, reaccumulation. This could be a fake break or anywhere in this zone. 50 to 618. We'll see where that fib actually ends up. Question. Okay. The price didn't drop much off Australian dollar weakness. Do we consider as selling? It dropped off of that really high, crazy stuff. This is not over there on the EJ, right? This had a bearish reaction. Again, that's really crazy, extremely high volume for this time of day. So facts, selling, and this reaction. Again, I'm not totally convinced I want to go short, but that did happen. So it's worth talking about. It could come around here. But if you look at the 1 hour, this is the 5-minute spike, right? And then this was the next hour. The 5-minute spike was actually here. But the thing is, okay, I want to answer this question a little more specifically. You're saying the price didn't drop much off Australian dollar weakness. Do we still consider it selling? Okay. So if you have high prices and high volume coming in, think of it this way. If you didn't consider it selling, then that would mean the present changes the past. So we look at this in real time and say, okay, there must be some selling because we have reasons why this selling appears in this way. And then it continues up. Let's say it just continued up as a result. Oh, we were wrong. There was no selling. We've changed the past. There was selling. It was just temporary. And going forward, there was more buying than selling as a result. So we're getting, think of it as you're getting the supply demand sort of balance in price areas, and important price areas start to show up, and we know them in advance, and it tells you what's going on. So the fact is the selling was active here, and to have this as a result is more bearish going forward than to have weakness and then higher prices come in or it doesn't move down. And right, so it's the result that says going forward if it's something you want to act on, but it's still selling no matter what. Weakness is weakness. This is factually information about the orders going on, lots of buying, of course, or else it wouldn't move up like that. But to close off the high and have this result, we know that there was selling into it. Let's see the 1 minute. We can get even more detail on it. It's about price areas, not time frames. What 1 minute is it? That one? Or is it before that? Oh gosh, where am I? I'm in 1 minute hell right now. At 1:30. Okay. So 1:30 ish. Okay. There you go. So facts, just facts. Can't change the past, right? Lots of buying, lots of selling. Who buys late and high up in a trend? Bad, dumb traders. Who sells as prices shooting up high in a trend? Smart traders. And it lost 50% of its progress. With all that activity, it lost 50%. So there has to be a good amount of selling in there. It has to be large selling. Otherwise, it would have closed up. So we know who's who. So it's just factual information. It doesn't mean I'm convinced to go short right now, but the facts are that there was large supply there. And everybody who's long, who knows what they're doing, sees that. And more so than yesterday, you have to be thinking about the possible reversal. But I'm not convinced. Make sense? Answer thoroughly. So things are what they are, but the reaction tells you if they're dependable. And again, if you get a sign of weakness and it continues up as a result, the weakness still was there. It was just temporary, and then going forward, there's more buying than selling. So that doesn't confirm that you're really in a bearish environment, even though it happened. Okay, good. sometimes that's how it goes with trend reversals. Is it's not everything's fine and dandy with the trend, and then all of a sudden, bam, high volume weakness. It happens. The 1 hour confirms it, and you say, okay, there it is, and it's time to go short. Sometimes, right, the consensus has to build. We have to we have to see what's up with higher prices once or twice. Um, so it takes a bit of, it's a turnaround. It takes a bit of time sometimes, but it's like you see you see it coming. You know what I'm saying, right? I'm trying to think of a good analogy or something. I don't know. It's like if you're outside and it's cloudy, well, it might rain, and then you get hit with one drop. Okay, much more likely, but not convinced. There you go. All right, so we're through everything here. Pound yen, the beast. I don't know what this thing, what it wants to do. What do you want to do, pound yen? So if it moves up, we have the same deal. I wouldn't buy into these prices. There was some weakness, but not convincing to go short by any means there. But if things are going to go that way today, it might give it. If not, we move up through there. It's not weakness stopping it, and then after it breaks out, I'd look to still trade long off strength. And the other option would be if it comes down, this is an obvious swing point here to look for a fake break or in the zone, ideally fake break. And there is the option to put a fib here, but I don't love it. No. That. But if it comes down, like I say, when the buyers come in, we'll know. We'll see. We'll see what's up with it. But I'm not buying it to the high. So either it breaks out, then I start looking for strength, or it reverses and I start looking for shorts. If it moves down, this is the first place I would consider buying. If it doesn't set up there, it could go lower, draw some bigger fibs, all that stuff. Yeah. Resistance turn support, whatever you got back there. We'll deal with it if it happens. Okay, so that's where we are. Any questions on the analysis, let me know. Any questions on yesterday's entry, let me know, particularly the euro dollar. That's the one I took. I'll be back in a minute. I do want to go through this entry. Back in a minute. More coffee. All right. No questions. Good. Either you completely understand or you're so lost you don't know what to ask. Hopefully the first one. I think we literally have like three people, two, three in here that have not been here a while. So yeah, it's the routine for most of us, right? Patience. Any other pairs you want to look at, let me know. Well, there's a point of interest here with the something to look at right now. Just knowing that this is a place where sellers would be active, or at least tells us about sellers. Not as good as new high ground, but it's new high ground over resistance, at least new high ground for the day. And of course, the fib area and the 618 overshoot. So it tells us about sellers. It's something. It's kind of weird. Okay, the 1 minute kind of cleans it up. This is the fib area there, some increase. Then we do the 618 potential overshoot spot and some volume there. But then we continued up and didn't see any consistent selling in these. This is past 618 all through here. Then here we hit new high ground. And finally, or here, they look the same, but we got some volume there. This is just really looking very closely at it because there's numbers to do right now. Uh, I would guess that this thing's probably going to do a break test of 618. For a while I didn't make the connection that the 618 actually does this break. It's just another support resistance. That's all it is. And the 50 fib does that too. And I realized one day it's the same thing. So that's testing for buyers, the first spot. It may do a clean break test continuation. But not in a spot where I would do anything. What's closest to a trade? I don't know. Just take it as it comes. Some light news for the euro, right? 6 minutes ago. Don't expect much. All right, so I'm hanging out for a while. Not much to say. I'm here. Looks like we may still be in this setups come later in the day phase that we did a lot last year. Maybe I'll start trading New York Open. Sleep like a human being. No. Because when I do that, I'll start missing the entries. That's how it goes. But we did a lot of that last year, right? Mark up the setups and into New York session. Well into the session is when it actually came around and set up. There's all this nonsense before, just kind of waiting for it, and then eventually. But if you haven't been trading that long, the market's not always like that. Sometimes the really obvious stuff comes in the first couple of hours, few hours, and then it plays out, and then it gets kind of sloppy after that, and New York news doesn't help, and it's over. It does do that. It'll probably return eventually. That's the you're aware of the interest rate decision for the CAD, right? We talked about in the beginning of the session. Not sure if you're aware of that. That's the number one thing if you're going to bring up the Canadian dollar. Make sure you know. So I normally you know about it. Okay. Um, I don't very often trade the CAD. Um, Really rarely. If it's a really, really good textbook setup, I'll trade almost anything, but it's not something I normally look at. Um, that and the interest rate decision, I'm not even thinking. But yeah, let's do the analysis. No problem. Because after the interest rate decision, you may have a clear result off of all that volume, and it may go along with your analysis. Where is this guy? Well, of course, it's moving down because the U.S. dollar weakness is a driving force against pretty much everything, except the yen, which is weaker. So let me see your question exactly. Bouncing at daily 50 fib. Okay, support. Oh, a big fib. Okay. Oh, geez, going back. Right. Oh yeah, that's a nice, clean, obvious one. Good stuff there. How do you Elliott wave this? That would be one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. So A, B, C, D, F, X, Y, Z, alpha, beta, 10, 11, 12. Oh, that's 12, obviously. But yeah, that's gonna give us information about buyers at 50 fib. Elliott waved that one. Basic question probably: why do interest rates move the value the way they do? I'm not a fundamental person, but the simple answer is the money gets moved around based on the outcome. I don't know. Perfectly, yes. Why is the sky blue? Well, because your eyes are seeing blue. Oh, that's actually what I was told, right? Um, yeah, when it comes to fundamentals, I kind of enjoy the fact that I'm a noob. I try to stay away. I like to be newbie about it. I don't want it to affect me in any way. I don't care. If they raise it, lower it, don't change it. I'll just do what the chart says. But interest rates are, as you probably know, one of the most volatile things to happen to markets. It's pretty much guaranteed it's going to get a little crazy. But again, that high volume that occurs and all that stuff could or could not lead to, a background of high volume that's good to trade off of going forward. Yeah. Confusing. Yeah, don't even worry about fundamentals. Sometimes we go with it, sometimes we go against it. Usually I don't even know. It's all about what's going on in the charts. Those are facts. Fundies are a lot of, speculation and is the price, is it built in or is it not? All right, don't get me talking. Fundy traders and the Elliott wave traders. So make fun of them a little bit. So let's take a look. Important level there. Nothing too exciting. But in the context of this downtrend, how much profit was taken, I mean, even if I didn't know the fib was there, it's good to know because it brings even more importance to the fact that strength didn't come in. But even without it, it's a strong downtrend that, again, the lowest prices are going to tell us the health. Going to the doctor. And there's very little profit taking, surprisingly little, which suggests that people that know what they're doing are speculating that the interest rate decision is going to bring it down further. Otherwise, I would think they would be getting out at this really obvious spot. Even if it wasn't the fib, lower prices. I mean, if you're long throughout here and the interest rate decision is coming, wouldn't this do something, right? We just sat here and did nothing at all. So that already tells me something about actually the news and what they're expecting, right? They're expecting this to go down. Um, and the chart can predict news moves better than fundies, in my opinion. So it looks like it's likely to happen. So either way, right? It's very bearish. Good information there. What would I do? So the question of any sort of bounce happening, nothing about this. The probability is to continue down. And like I say, I only trade this pair on occasion when it's really, really clean. If it wasn't interest rates coming, this is actually very clean. And if it comes and goes and we're still sort of intact, probably not. It's going to be madness. Then that, first of all, support term resistance. Okay, so we get a general area here. 50 EMA starts coming around. Um, so that's going to be textbook. Um, and the fact that this is a fib is not a problem. It actually is good to know that we can get down that close to it and touch it without profit taking. Makes this even better. So, interest rate decision aside, madness aside, it's very bearish on a typical day. I'd be looking to just short it here. Maybe interest rates will kind of just have it go nuts in here and this sets up. I don't know. But it could maybe pop up here, see very ridiculously high volume weakness and go to. But we have a stage set here where they're holding shorts. And that would be the trade, right? If it didn't set up there, I'd be looking for this test of this zone up to the fake break. So still very bearish. We did get good information there. That's what I was thinking about the news. If it see if you can see if you can get in people trading break a break on the news. Yeah. Well, the chart again going off facts. Smart money is short. They had plenty of opportunity to start taking some profit, and surprisingly, they didn't. Surprisingly little activity down there, so they're holding on to it really confidently. This is what the chart says, so that we know. So what does it tell us? It's likely to move down on the interest rate decision. It could pop up and then move down. It's dangerous stuff. I wouldn't mess with it. But once it settles, if this bearish situation is still intact and the high volume off of that is not an issue with strength, then yeah. Well, we already know that the U.S. dollar is weak, and combining that with the Canadian dollar, it's really straightforward. There's actually some signs of strength that never stopped it. So as a total fundy noob who doesn't care and likes to not know, I predict this is going to move down on the interest rate decision. Cool. Also on UFDAT, it's very clear to see that Oanda volume is shit compared to yours. Yeah, of variable spreads and spreads that, because I've heard that go nuts at times, and whatever they do with their spread, I think they have just artificial ticks and artificial prices, and they're just totally toying with you. Who knows? All right, anything developing? Let's see. This is not a trade, just a prediction. This guy, no. Okay, AJ, EJ. So AJ just touched the zone. 1 hour zone. And we are not seeing weakness. That's just a little test for buyer's area. Not the most important thing in the world, but that's what these zones represent. So it's if sellers were interested, they'd be showing up there, and so far we don't see them. Maybe you could even get a fib in there for extra. Yeah. So a 618 overshoot, right? That's the end. That's where selling would really appear. So to not see the selling there and the zone, right? It all says it's still going to move up here. So we'll see what's up. If they do this again, it's becoming obvious that it's going to turn. Again, the situation would be selling against a very weak yen. So it would be nice if all the pieces kind of rearranged, not just one thing. If everything's reversing like this, and then the correlation and all that stuff, right? It would be more a situation where if it's not that, then it would just be okay. The yen is really weak; it's the weakest one, and then off of something like this, setting up without nothing, without anything else but the Australian AJ, AU, even just the two of them. Uh, it would just say, okay, the Australian dollar itself is actually weaker than the yen now. Took first place as the weakest, but it's still weak against weak. It's so correlated. It would be nice to see everything turn and have the U.S. dollar yen situation still drive the moves just in the opposite direction. It's always the best, always the cleanest, right? The driving force of the move is what's going to drive it to reverse too. Would be the best. That's where all the money is, right? Short dollar and short yen. Pete, how do you select price levels to mark? Is it low, high of the week to consider? Price levels to mark. Well, I try to stick with really obvious fibs, as you see, not like too many of them, just the ones that are really obvious. Uh, Support resistance, which is really uh, from a large time frame, is only just the really obvious stuff because if you're looking at a 1 hour chart, you're not going to see it maybe. So if there's a level there from really far away, I have it marked. And as you saw, it's just a couple of lines sometimes for obvious stuff that the price might be heading towards soon. Um, and then on an intraday level, 1 hour chart is I like really obvious support resistances and the high or low of a session, which is really support resistance. Um, this, like, why didn't I mark this? Is because I see price for so long not really caring about it. Typically, a resistance, it should act like a resistance. Either get a fake break, a real break, a break test, a double top, something, right? It's not respecting it at all for so long that I'm not considering that important anymore. This guy is clearly, right, should be there. Let me see your question again. Is it the low high of the week to consider? No, not really based on a week. It's just levels that matter because they're support resistance or fibs and they're obvious. Again, a lot of times it's a previous day's high low. But, I only mark what's relevant. I could be drawing lines all over the place, but, what we're dealing with today, if we broke out up here, I'd be looking left and see what's going on. But as you notice, there's really not that many lines. Some of these are extra for whatever. Here, this is a clean one. It's just our fib, which is obvious, our recent support resistance, which is obvious. If we go higher or lower, then I'll worry about what's back there. This is all that matters at the moment. Of course, in trending moves, the moving averages as support resistance. I don't know what else I could tell you. The way you asked the question is it the low high of the week? So at the time frame of a week to consider, or is it the intraday level? So you're talking about different time frames. And like I have a thing with time frames. Like I almost wish there was one time frame and you just zoom in and zoom out because people make a thing out of time frames. A week, I'm not worried about that at all. You can give me a 3 hour and 5 minute chart. 3 hour every 3 hours and 15 minutes it makes a new candle. It doesn't even matter. I could do it on a 1 minute chart if I zoom out enough. right? So it's just a really obvious support resistance levels. It's not based on any period of time. I think people get caught up in time and time frames and different signals on different time frames giving conflicting information, which is impossible because it's the same information. Well, the 1 hour stochastics is bullish and the 4 hour stochastics is bearish. So we have conflicting information. It's the same data. It's the same exact data. Time frame, schmime frame. Okay. On the euro dollar, why are you just drawing the tails on the most recent swing rather than the fib is respecting that someone mentioned yesterday? Just because it's a little redundant, but it's not wrong. I don't know if something goes wrong. I don't want to make it my fault. No, no. It wasn't my fib. I'm not owning it. No. No, there's nothing wrong with that. But really, actually, the thing is now that this ranging sort of activity occurred, I don't like drawing fibs over ranges, number one. As far as doing this, like that's not even the high, and this is just wrong for me here. So it's that. And now looking at that, this area is the most recent information, right? Because now this is uh, so going off of this now is what I want. To me, that fib is not really the point here, which gives us the 50 fib like here. Like I don't feel like that's important. The new information is going off. This is more recent, and this is actually where we saw the setup and the large buying, and so at the time, okay, it was a fake break and all that, and going forward, I feel like we're working off of that now as the last piece of information that's important, which just gives me a zone there. The only way I would draw another fib from here is if we went into another leg up or something, maybe. I don't know. This is just the way I see it. We're working off of this now. It's a support. Makes sense? Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Another question. Okay, no problem. Let me just see if there's any action. Don't want to miss it. This guy we really don't care that much about. All right, whatever. EJ, really nothing of interest. AJ was zone, not much selling. We know that already because this potentially could reverse. Who knows? We have to see. And no real selling came in here, so sort of a non-event. Again, if they're really looking to take profit, it's likely they're eyeballing up here with fake break. Got a zone there. I only draw these boxes on the 1 hour and 5 minute, right? So you don't get a million of them. That's what I found to be the most important. Uh, Anything else of interest? Yeah, it looks like we're probably still in this phase of having the setups happen later in the day. But there's still the setups that we find, right at London Open. Just patience, patience. Okay, what was that question? So if there was a low level on yesterday's low on EU, would you still have marked that level? Low volume, low level. Let me see. You mean low volume? I think is what you're saying, right? Okay, yeah. Uh, so if there was low volume on that level, would I still have marked it? Oh yeah, it's just support. Nothing complicated there. And it happens to be the low of the session, which is typically how it goes. Yeah, simple support. It would be exactly the same no matter what. It's a test area for buyers. In this case, we did see large buying. If we didn't, it's still a support, and it's less likely that you would see buying. But that makes it more likely in this case. But it's a simple support. Let's do uh, let's do a 5 minute chart support. Let's do a 4 hour support. Oh, where am I? No, support. Uh, 1 minute support. I was gonna let me go. You get the idea. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm just messing around with my time frame humor. Um, so yeah, it's just a simple support. What happened there is, you know, something else. But either way, it's support. What else can I tell you? I don't know. Don't overthink. It's just obvious stuff. If price was breaking through here, I would say it's breaking it. Okay, then we have what, a fib here from this low to high, really obvious one. Definitely correct. If it breaks through that, what do we have? We have this. Whether it's a buy situation or not, I'm just saying it's support. It's a test for buyers. If it breaks that, what do we have? We have this. So if I really wanted to mark everything up and be thorough right now, it would be that. Don't expect that to happen today. I don't know. Does that help? No, this too. I just realized this is lower, actually. It's a really simple thing. So I'm trying to figure out what the issue might be, and I'm thinking that it's because I only mark up what is likely going to even come into play for the moment. I'm not marking up everything for the sake of it because we're not even going to see these prices today unless all hell breaks loose. That helps. Okay, good. Support resistance fibs, fake break patterns, overshoots, moving averages, volume. That's it. Phases. Not very complicated. I think what makes it complicated for some people, I don't know if this is your situation, but I think with some people is that this is a good thing to say every now and then. You must unlearn what you have learned. So not everybody teaches the same. Even when it comes to something like support resistance, fibs, people draw fibs in the weirdest places. Yeah. And then somebody who's learning would say, okay, well, that's how you do it. And then they'll see somebody else do it differently, and now they'll be confused because, yeah. Um, so if you're trying to take information from elsewhere because it was supposedly a credible source, and then combine it with things that I do, and there may be conflicting there may be ideas that are maybe in people's minds that are not even correct to me, and it can complicate the whole thing. I feel like in a way I'd have an easier time with somebody who knows nothing. They've just been trading off a demo for a month, and they never visited any website, any forum, saw any YouTube video, just messing around with a demo for a month. That would be the person I could just teach in a day, maybe not a day, but maybe they're just like, I've done that with people who are, they want to learn, but they don't really know much about trading. So I explained it to them. This happened recently, about a couple of weeks ago. That this guy, he's young, 19, was thinking about getting into trading, and after he found out that's what I do, and I started explaining things to him about, well, this is how I trade. It's you're looking at the supply and demand stuff, and X, Y, Z. This is how I trade. And he's like, oh, okay. And he applied it to the real world, and like, okay, so if you're selling, like, it sounded like an example that I would give. Okay, so you're selling something out, like selling it on the market, and you want to sell at a high price. Of course, you want to sell for, yeah, like he got it. And that was it. Like, okay, and on the chart you have levels that you mark up. That black's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's like, okay. People have learned all this stuff, and then they start to learn this, or even like traditional VSA, and they've tried to use the software, and they're worried about up thrust bars and gotcha bars and chocolate bars. I don't know. No chocolate bars here. Just throw it all in the trash. Throw it all, at least put it aside, and then learn this with a clear mind. And then if you want to take something and put it back in, go ahead. I don't know. I'm just saying that for the record. Euro pound, yeah. Just to comment on any information that we're getting, at least here. Again, higher prices, if they're not going to show weakness, we are likely headed to the top in the decision time. That's it. Nothing exciting. Okay, so EG, which I don't trade, but I do look at for the sake of looking at the two currencies without the dollar and yen influence and just seeing them compared to each other. And applying analysis on this is like not even something I ever do, but let's do it. One second. Okay. So the first important thing to note is anything going on here is a side note to what's important in the market, because the US dollar and the yen, guess what, are driving things, and they're weak, right? Yes, I've said it 10 times. So any fluctuations between these two relatively are a side note. So if we're looking at the euro pound and we're seeing that it's bullish, then it doesn't say, oh, the pound is really weak or anything like that. It says, well, your euro trade is probably going to move up further than your pound trade is going to move up, but they're both likely to move up because it's really not the main story. Okay. So these fluctuations are really a minor thing. If you wanted to trade it, then this means you're moving completely away from the US dollar and yen influence, which to me is likely going to get sloppy. That's what's keeping things nice and clean. That's my favorite thing. Besides, I don't know, pizza. Okay. But let's just apply the analysis after that big disclaimer. Yay. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to just blindly apply the method robotically. This is basically support resistance, right? Obvious, obvious. Okay. Daily chart. Is there a trend? This goes back to December. If there's any trend, it's no. Trend structure is higher highs, higher lows. This is high, low, high, low, high, low. So this is range. This is a daily chart. So is there any trend? No. It's a range. Is there momentum? At least any strong momentum in here in any direction? No. Choppy. So there's no direction range as far as our overview. And we have some obvious levels there. Maybe this too I want to mark. Nah, I'll wait till I get in there. Go right to the 1 hour chart. So in context of the range, there's the range. So this is what we're working with. So in a ranging situation, it's different from trading a trend. I'm not drawing fibs. I'm not looking for fib entries. Just ideally the bottom and top of the range. Unless over time a new low starts to really build up. So we could be seeing that this is actually, it could be a shrinking range. So it's not an exact science that it's got to be this low and this high all the time. Ideally it is. So I'd be looking to do that or that. That's the ideal. Buy here or sell here. And in ranging situations, typically your volume is going to confirm that it's a range. If there's something else going on, then and by doing that, it's not giving a particular direction. You'll see some buying off the low, some selling off the high, and choppiness in the middle. That's symptoms of a range. So that's the first thing. That's really it. So I'd be looking to buy here and sell there. If you wanted to get a little more aggressive with it, let's look at the 1 hour high volume. Aggressive meaning it's in ranging conditions. You can try to trade these little trending moves. It's not crazy when the range is big, but these would be the nice ones. But let's see. So recent high volume, and what does it tell us on the 1 hour chart? We see a lot of strength. And we talked about that yesterday as far as long setups coming around, that um, using this chart to tell you which may be better. And there was this sign of strength here, buying that came into this area, whatever that is, 618 overshoot, I don't know, which made the euro stronger than the pound for the rest of the day off this obvious high volume strength, bullish result. So it's good for that use, right? If you're looking to go long on these two, they're kind of both setting up, and you see over here strength, this going on, right? It tells you something. But having that strength there and being yesterday's low and an obvious level, this would be a fib here. You might have all this stuff drawn in already. That's an obvious fib. This I wouldn't do because it's too rangy in here. So to me, it's that. And I would want to be aware of that level. Whatever. We have a sort of a zone. But that gives us strength in the background. And then this fib is going to tell us about buyers. So let's see that. Nothing too exciting. High volume leading to lower prices. Strong selling. No wicks on these. Strong selling. Pop into the fib zone. Low activity. Nothing exciting there, right? Usually it'll stick out. If buyers are interested, they would show up. They're not there. So this is a very low volume, sort of pausing of the selling, testing for buyers. This is a whole no demand sort of move up. So it's likely, we had strength in the background, right? So it's likely now to break this, and down here is the next stop to tell you about. Is that a fib, right? Yeah. So that's going to be the 618 overshoot area next, right? And lower ground. So we're all in that. That's another area to find out. This is the next area is going to tell us about buyers. If it goes there, it's likely to, considering this. And that long setup could show up little less likely since they didn't show up here, but it could come in with a bang, high volume, anywhere in this area down to the 618 overshoot, right? And then from there, give a long entry. It matches that strength yesterday. Now, if it goes through that, right, and doesn't hit the buying, this is, again, where we saw that recent buying, and we can look at it on the 5-minute back there. Ooh, pretty. So that, it's a better trade too because it's a lower price, which is always better for buying, and it's an area at which we saw high volume buying before. Here, we're not seeing it. Maybe this is obvious. So I'd be looking for that. And if all else fails and it comes down here, you got the bottom of the range. It's likely, considering the background, very likely to bounce off of one of these with a nice trade if it comes down, considering all the buying there, lack of any high volume selling up here. But we did we did actually see strong selling here, but not in the traditional profit taking weakness kind of way. But this is fine, right? Let it come down. Actually, coming in as a sign of strength if this closes up, right? So that matches our background strength, strength, strength. All right, that should do it. Any questions on that? Having said all that, I don't trade this, but those would be correct. Those two down there, and then also this one, if this set up right. The lower ones are better, particularly this one, but actually, yeah, both of them would be good. One of these, but that might set up, that would be valid. Sometimes you get big ranges that behave like a trend. It happens all the time as it goes up and down. So you can do that if volume agrees and all that. All right, cool. Anything of interest? I'm really not surprised at this non-event. Anyone who knows what they're doing, right, is looking to, which is us included, looking to buy lower or sell high. See the weakness. This is not going to be very helpful right here. Now, if we saw a weakness coming in, we'd say, okay, it's starting to tell us something. This is just non-event. The sellers are up here. How much, we'll find out. And the buyers are lower. I mean, here, everywhere else, but just not up here. Who would buy up here, right? Horrible. So, not surprised at the sitting around. Similar here. Selling would be up here, really. Buying would be down here. So we're kind of stuck. All right. I'll hang around a little bit longer, but end the session soon. If there's any other questions, I'll do one final, I guess, run through before I go. Back in a minute. All right. Patience, patience. Could we look at Brent? Sure. Making me work today. All right, it's your turn. Let me see your analysis. Send me a picture. Well, all right, let's see. Okay, this one's easy. So, what would you be looking to do? Um, Adil. Hope I said your name right. What would you be looking to do here? Buy. Buy the breakout right now, right? Are you in? 5980. No? Right now, Adil's like, oh God, I'm so confused, right? Sorry. However, you knew that, right? Yes, yes. Audio cutting out. Audio cutting out? No, don't tell me that's really happening. Audio all cray? Really? I hadn't touched a thing. Better now? Okay. Okay, okay. So we have momentum, upside, trend, uptrend, and you're saying initially I didn't see strength that drove them. Okay, right. And then at 52.54, something about 52.54. Let me see. But the thing is, that's why we look at this first is to say, right? We always look at that first. That means if there is a trend and or momentum, in this case both, so yes, there is to the upside, that means that's the direction that we're going in, unless we see high volume weakness, then we can't. Right? So that's the purpose of knowing that. So the fact that you didn't see strength doesn't matter in this case. It's that we have a direction, and if there's not weakness, we're going with that direction. Very simple. High prices tell you the health of the trend, goes to the doctor, and so far, very, very nice. Low volume, so it's likely to continue. Now, this could be actually, this closes in 4 minutes, so that's not going to be very high either. We can get some detail, new high ground. Okay, so there is some weakness here, but nothing that's going to tell us that it's time to go short. Again, look, we talked about before, it's kind of maybe a first drop of rain, or the clouds are starting to form, but it's not convincing. Right now, it says it could pull back. It could end up a reversal. It has the potential, but obviously, as you know, this has to be high on a 1 hour chart. That's not. So there's a bit of selling, which is good on an uptrend. It means that you'll likely get some retracement that you could trade, right? But unless this goes higher before it pulls back, which it might. But for the moment, we have that. We have a resistance turn support, very obvious level there. So this is where we're going to find out about buyers. But as you know, my favorite are the fib, support resistance, and fake breakouts. So That gives us this sort of thing as far as a fake break, fib as a first good area. At least a fake break. Maybe I would include this so we have a general area to see. That's the low of the session today so far. So it would be a fake break of that. Low of the session, new low ground. And there's also a resistance. But actually looking at it on the 5 minute, that gives us that for a fake break, right? All familiar stuff. Now, if this is showing high volume weakness and coming back, I was saying this earlier, I'm not buying into high volume weakness. And it's actually saying, if it comes down off of this, confirms the weakness, right? Let me check my sound is good. Okay. If it confirms that weakness by coming down, that suggests a larger retracement and that you'll get maybe this, right? 50 EMA fib, maybe 618 overshoot. So I'm less likely with real weakness showing up here that may confirm or not. If it confirms, to buy into weakness, right? Remember that one. Price areas, selling there. So it's not enough to go short, and it's really not problematic. But we don't want to buy into that and suggest further retracement because there's enough sellers to bring it down there. So in this case, ideally, what's the best situation? Not buying into weakness. Let's get away from it, get into this area. And of course, nothing wrong with that. Testing that zone down to the fake break for that long, just because it's an obvious level, and we may see that. So as long as there's no high volume weakness, obvious trend, obvious direction, obvious levels. And our information most recently is that new high ground is showing some selling coming in. We'll see how that turns out. But obviously, it's not a short or a long right now. But that's if it moves down. If it moves up, and again, we're in an uptrend with no weakness, you got a fib there to draw, right, and so on, until there's actual high volume supply coming in. I was checking to see what was here. Well, that's very telling. We already knew it, but even more so. This is way beyond 618 overshoot. This, yeah, but right. So that's a big marker. We already knew it's bullish, but even more so. With this high above 618, we're staying there for many hours. So that's also a bullish situation there. I wouldn't even have the fib drawn anymore. Maybe the 618 is support. Resistance turns support. All right. Any questions on that? It's all the same after a while, isn't it? Why are you guys still here? Anything of interest? Nah. Everything we have mapped out and talked about, it's all in play, just like yesterday. It's the way it's been. Slow beginnings, and then eventually things pick up and hopefully get to the setup areas. We like the company. Me too. It goes by a lot faster too. Yeah, the pivots. Yeah. No. I have nothing against them. When they really tend to come into play is when you're into new high ground. That in some of your videos, you use pivot points. Have you got? Oh, same question. Um, where they really come into play. First of all, they were never the really driving force in making a decision. It's like behind. It's last on the list. It was absolutely last on the list as far as a confluence. So if volume agreed, I like the setup, this and that. Okay, the pivot is there. It's not a random spot. But really, where it comes into play is when you're into new high ground, a new low ground, where there's not much to the left. And let's say we Where would I care about a pivot right here? Would be hypothetically here. If we broke out of this, there wasn't any double top high volume weakness. We expect it to continue. And we have this kind of big area where there's not much support resistance in here. And you're looking at, I guess, R3 or whatever is going on up there. Those tend to come into play. But when they're all kind of in here, I ended up kind of ignoring them and going with the levels that I drew. And saying, well, it may agree, it may disagree. I'm taking the trade either way, so who cares? you know. But if you like them, you like them. And again, that really seems to be something very accurate. Whether you just have nothing here for a while, you get a pivot point in there, and you see some selling coming in off of it, and you see that it's actually doing something. But even with that, like if I'm in a trade, first of all, I'm not buying into this high. So in a pattern like that, new high ground, whatever, I'm very rarely just getting into a trade. If I'm into a trade and it's doing this, I'm actually trailing it because I got in on a dip. And in that case, I would go. It wouldn't hurt to know a pivot, I guess. But I'd like to trail behind the moving averages on the smaller time frame up there. So the 14 to 50 EMA, obvious fibs, and then buy areas and keep my stop right behind that and try to trail it at that point if it's doing an extra leg. So I ended up not really using them. But really, there's nothing wrong with them. If you like them, it's not something I would say don't use or anything like that. I always come back to these levels, just simple things: support resistance, fibs, moving average, fake breaks. It always comes back to that. So nothing extra really. All right. So before I go, I'll leave you with whatever information. Not that anything's really developed. Um, the half position of my euro dollar is still running. Entry was down there. So stop at break even. If we go down and hit that, then I'll consider buying here if it sets up right. Any high volume selling, I'm not going to push my luck. If some moves up and hits high volume selling or very high volume leading to lower prices and there's no signs of demand starting to come in and it's supply coming in that way, high volume leading to lower prices, I'm not going to mess around with that. But if we just kind of work our way down, see some buying here, but go anyway, and there's not a lot of weakness, and this sets up, I'll take that. This, probably not. I'd be just getting out below that anyway. I'd be adding to it, so I'm not doing that. Um, so that is still nice. Again, there's this late day activity stuff, so it's really possible. It seems far away, but it could be hours away. It could be this. This was pretty late yesterday. Look at these late moves. 17. This guy, again, we're considering that I consider this the best place to buy would be here on a fake break or whatever. That's a fib, right? Yeah. Okay. I actually thought that would continue, but that was just a board prediction out of boredom. It wasn't an entry. So if we can come down, this is good. This is good. And we'll hit the buyers here very likely, and maybe a setup. Nothing wrong with that one. So it's pretty much the same thing. What do you know? AU, the Australian dollar is not my first choice to go long. It's my last choice because that one has seen some weakness. And choppy sloppy, where's our fib? I don't like it. Too much weakness. Better options. Right? Again, with those guys, let's just get away from that. Whatever. Let it come down. Not the time. I wouldn't consider buying. Too much profit taking. This guy, EJ, similar to AU, AJ in how it looks, but not as much selling. So this guy would be all right with it. Here, we looked at that earlier. Here, of course, which is like the others, but this one I would consider. Let's look at the top recently, right? Again, if there's not a lot of selling concentrated here, then it suggests there's nothing wrong with this if it sets up right. If there is a lot of selling, I wouldn't want to buy into it, right? Right. Okay, now, concentrated selling off the high prices? Nah. Distribution, profit taking? Nah. It's when those prices first come in, right? This was new high ground. It was a bit, but really nothing building up. No issue. Um, the volume is pretty high, though. That is something to note. But the 5-minute is not so much agreeing that that's weakness. It's sort of a mixed bag. Wouldn't hurt to see high volume on a 1 hour here. Make sure the activity is nice and high on that. If not, be safer. See if that comes around. But yeah, considering that volume, it's a bit on the high side up there. So maybe the lower one. That is ideal. And similar to the pound, it did that 6180 thing. If I was looking to go short, I might think about that, but not. So let it come down, let it come down. This is the place to buy. This is going to be at least a test for buyers here. Now that that's really formed that top for the moment. If we go here, it's going to tell you about buyers. It's a little high up. I don't hate it, but the lower one is better. 5-minute setup here. Compare the strength there to the weakness here. Make sure there's an imbalance and it's nice. No supply also before entry, and then watch out when it gets there. Manage the trade. Not horrible. This is better. All right. Having said all that, if price moves up, test the highs, test new high ground. There's high volume weakness coming in. The 5-minute shows it. The 1 hour shows it. Climactic, high volume, highest volume of the last few days, highest volume of the trend, whatever. And it confirms weakness, and particularly a fake break. Then it all changes to bearishness and distribution. All right, guys. Again, the market is good and clean. Nothing mysterious about it. Just takes a while to get to the setups. That's the way it's been. We'll see if it comes around. All right, guys. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.